Hello there. What is going on, everybody? We are on board the bridge of the Enterprise today, and we're getting close to Romulan space. But before we enter the neutral zone, I have a little bit of free time, and I wanted to talk to you about some things that I wish I had known sooner when getting ready to play Star Trek Into the Unknown by WizKids. Now, this is an amazing game that I'm having a lot of fun with, and there are definitely some things that would have been helpful to know sooner. Also, some things that I think are just helpful tips and tricks that I wanted to share with you guys, and hopefully you enjoy them. And if you do, I'd love to have you stick around. We are still doing 12 days of Life Day all through this month. That's going to be 12 big giveaways that we are doing awesome stuff. We're going to be doing one at the end of this video as well, and that's going to be for a Benjamin Sisko foil promo. For this game, Star Trek Into the Unknown. So any of you who are looking to play the game or already have the game or have the game pre-ordered, it's coming. The release street date is the 18th. So depending on when you're watching this, it's either already out or coming out tomorrow or whenever. It's on the verge of coming out very, very, very soon. So a very exciting time. So as you're getting ready to play this game, hopefully these will be some tips and tricks that will help you in your first couple of games. And if you want to have a chance to enter to win any of the cool promos that we're giving away this month, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. Plus, you can like the video and share and give it click that little bell for alerts, and check out my links down below if you want to join our Discord or any of these social media channels, Blue Sky, Facebook, all of that good stuff, Instagram. I've been posting a lot of pictures of this game lately too. It's a fun game, and I'm loving the miniatures and the gameplay and all of that. I've been even working on the campaign lately and just getting a lot of exposure into it. The rabbit hole goes deeper and deeper. Super groovy stuff. With all that being said, let me fire up some. Did I just launch torpedoes? I don't know. It should be. Ensign, put it on screen. There we go. All right, we're going to start. Why am I doing a voice now? My Scotty, I don't know. It's not even on this. This isn't even his Enterprise. It doesn't even make sense. First thing I think is be a helpful tip is when you are getting started with this game, if you're having a difficult time getting your ships onto the pegs, don't press too hard. Don't risk breaking them, although they are fairly resilient. They're not going to crumble too easily, but no reason to put undue pressure on your ships. One of the first things that I've noticed multiple times when setting ships up, also tell your opponent that you're playing, because that's probably their first time playing as well. When you're putting the ships on the bases, the T, this should be the top, right? It's not like you're not using the arrow point going forward. The cap of the T is going forward. So, that big flat side is facing forward. You may just have your pegs on and you have your ship on going on the base backwards. That happens more often than you might expect, especially during your first couple of games. So if you notice it's not going on there just right, don't push too hard. Just make sure you don't have it backwards, because that happens a lot with those pegs. The intuitive thing is for that point, the straight line, to be going forward, but the straight line is actually going backwards. So that's kind of a thing. So it might be more intuitive for the Cardassian ships, which do have kind of a bigger front and a more narrow back. It looks a little bit more like that. But that is the way. The T's going forward. So if they're not going on the pegs just right, double check that. Next up, your incident mission cards, the situations, overture, and complications. When I was sorting out all of my components and getting ready to teach the game a couple of weeks ago, I sat down and I said, wait a second, I'm missing pieces. I don't have all the right numbers. Shouldn't I have 6 overtures, but I only have 5 situations? Am I missing cards? Well, this isn't right. I almost panicked because I thought I was missing a card and I was going to have to write WizKids. However, it got confirmed, and of course, in the rule book has a components listing and everything. But in that moment, I was so used to, and I was certain, based on every other game that I had played, that when you have like objective type of cards or cards like this that all seem to go together, that you have a standardized distribution of them. I was expecting to have 6 of each, but you actually have 7 complications, 6 overtures, and 5 situations. That is by design. It's not to avoid the number 666 or any sort of Satan Star Trek references. No, it's just the way it is. You have 5 situations, 6 overtures, and 7 complications. That is normal. So if you are sorting everything out and you notice that you don't have even distribution of those cards, don't worry. That is normal, and it would have saved me quite a bit of sweating, thinking that I was missing a card, and so that's my advice to you. Don't worry if your cards don't look totally normal. They should be 5 situations, 6 overture, and 7 complications. Moving on, the Helm is not the most intuitive station on the bridge. There's been multiple times, especially when I'm teaching someone new, their first game, they're like, wait a second, so I just do Impulse and Warp both from the Captain's Chair, because the Impulse action section is located on the lower half of the Captain's Chair, just under Warp. It is very important to remember that this little red line right here connects to the Helm. Helm is over here, and it's, again, there was a difficulty in establishing proper real estate on the board. They probably could have fit it in here, but then some helms have more options than other helms, and not all ships are created equal, so on and so forth. Always remember that Impulse, at least on the ships in the core set, the ships that we've seen so far, is controlled from the Helm and not from the Captain's Chair. Remember that red line, and also keep that in mind for future proofing too. There could be other ships in the future that have different layouts. There could be some factions or races that have wildly different ships, like this ship drives from the med bay because that's where the steering wheel is. Who knows? I don't know what the Breen do. I have never been on a Breen ship. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? So although I do expect most ships to kind of follow this blueprint, but that's an easy one to miss for your first couple of games, is that little red line that connects the Helm to Impulse. It can save you some frustration trying to figure out where your officer has to be so that you can do both a Warp and an Impulse in the same activation or the same turn. That's an important thing. Now, since we're on the topic of movement, this is more of a helpful try not to forget thing, because it will bite you in the butt later on in the game. When you're doing your Impulse and your Warp maneuvers, don't forget to pay the costs. Any action that has symbols next to them, there's going to be either a symbol cost or a power cost for any symbols that the officer assigned cannot meet. So especially if you're doing standby actions, you're going to have to pay all of those out of power. It's very easy to forget to pay that power cost. It's very easy to forget to check your officer. In your learning mission, it points this out. Your very first game, if you're playing by the book, it's going to be very simple because, hey, you're going to be playing the Defiant or the Jem'Hadar Fighter. But what happens when you switch to a different ship, and maybe you have more officers now? When you upgrade from 1 ship to 3 ships, all of a sudden you have a lot more things to pay attention to. It can be very easy to forget to pay your power costs. It can also be very easy to forget to compare your Impulse, your symbol requirements to your officers. You may have power requirements more than you thought, because now you couldn't put that same officer there. You had to, again, when you have 3 ships, you're going to start running low on officers, and you're going to have ships that are out there with only maybe 2 officers. You'll be shuffling people around, and you may not always have somebody trying to steer the ship who is adept at steering the ship. And when that happens, when you don't have the symbols to meet that requirement, you have to pay out of your reserve power, and it's very easy to forget to do that. And that also becomes bigly problematic later in the game when you're now taking damage to shields and then starting to take damage to your hull, and you're like, wait, I would have had a lot less shields if I had actually been paying the power requirements that I was supposed to have all game. And then it'll feel really bad later on in the game when you're like, you should have killed me, but yeah, you didn't, because I forgot to drain my power when I was doing all that stuff. So again, play accurately, try to remember, and also try to remind your opponent to check their stuff as well. Reminding each other is a very important thing, especially when it comes to these tokens right here, your advantage and peril tokens. These are so easy to forget. Things I wish I'd known sooner, right? This one isn't as much a thing that I didn't know, but it's a thing that I think we can remember even better. It's easy to forget. Very, very easy to forget these, especially the peril tokens. So advantage gives you a reroll. Peril forces you, or gives you the ability to force your opponent to reroll something, so you can make them reroll something that was favorable, as long, of course, as it's not a breakthrough success. Now, here's the thing. Since the peril is stored on your opponent's ships, it's very easy for you not even to notice them, especially when you're first starting out. You're going to be paying attention to your own stuff. You're not necessarily going to be micromanaging your opponent. I would strongly suggest for you and your opponent to do your best to remind each other that when you see tokens like this, it's very easy to forget these tokens. It's very, very easy to forget stuff that you don't always have, something that you may just have temporarily. And it's also even more likely for you to forget to spend the peril on your opponent's ships. So as a courtesy to help you both learn the game better, I definitely suggest when you have peril, you make sure you point out to your opponent every time you're rolling dice, oh, by the way, I have a peril. Did you want to use this? Again, it's not something you should always do, but I think when you're learning the game, it's definitely something you should do. And I honestly, I'll go so further to say it's probably a good idea to always do that because it keeps you a good sport. This isn't a win at all costs sort of hyper-competitive game. This game is about the mutually shared experience of going through the galaxy and exploring and negotiating and having diplomacy and discovery and combat and everything in between. And so, you want to... Your opponent isn't so much an adversary as they are, your companion in this journey. So for both of your benefits, definitely help each other to remind of the token possibilities that are available, especially when it's on your ship and not theirs, and vice versa. So good stuff there. I forget those all the time. Oh, and let's talk about torpedoes. Because torpedoes are super fun, and they're one of the hidden gems of this game. Is torpedo play is very, very cool the way it works. But, as you are cycling through alert statuses, like for example, here's the Defiant at green alert 2. They've gone down in the alert categories just a little bit, and they're getting their weapons power up. They have 1 weapons power at green alert 2, which suddenly opens up the possibility of rolling some dice and firing some phasers. And you're like, well, if I do 1 weapons power and do a reserve power into there, and then maybe I've got Wharf at tactical, I can get an extra black die. I've got some options I can play around with. I could do a 3 dice shot, or I could split it up a little bit. A lot of times in combat, you fire a torpedo. You save 1 power left so you can fire a torpedo after your phaser shots. However, in this case, you cannot. Any newcomers want to guess why? Pause the video now. Let me know down in the comments if you can guess why. It's because your status right here that corresponds to green alert 2 is probes. You've got probes loaded. You don't have any torpedoes loaded. You cannot fire torpedoes when you have the probe symbol. You have to go to another symbol that has that yellow torpedo icon in here, and that is fixed. Now, not every ship is the same. Not every ship will have torpedoes available at the same time that weapons are coming up. There are examples where your weapons power now shows up, but you're still at probes. The Dominion has ships like that have weapons power just about everywhere, but they still have their probes, like they're kind of their peaceful half of their dial. For most ships, once you get into like the high yellows and the red alerts, yes, of course you're going to have higher weapons power and also going to have torpedoes available. But for a lot of ships in this game, and I would imagine for the foreseeable future, you're probably going to see more and more ships that have that kind of in-between status where you're starting to get some weapons power, but you also still have probes loaded. This is good when you're still kind of being diplomatic, but you want to be able to maybe shoot down a torpedo or want to have some kind of defensive capability in case somebody surprises you before you can react to it. But in this case, cannot fire torpedoes. Also, when it comes to combat, let's not forget the middle number. Now, this is one that's very easy to forget, especially when you're first starting out. Perhaps you're playing with the Defiant, right? Like the first mission has you using the Defiant. They have a resiliency value of 4. Resilience is one of those hard-printed stats that doesn't always get used, and it's one that I have personally forgotten to take advantage of many, many times. But it's important to point out that other ships are going to have much lower resilience values, and that means that when we're rolling dice, breakthrough successes are great. They're not just successes that can't be re-rolled by peril. They also need to be taken account of and compared to your opponent's resiliency value, because look at that constellation. That's a big old ship, but it's very easy to get extra damage cards through. So again, resiliency is that middle number. Now, of course, you've got your avoidance and your max warp, but resilience is one of those things that is going to be, if I have that many breakthrough successes, I can give you a damage card. And extra damage cards are a great way to help you make sure that a ship is going to be less effective. And hopefully, if you're shooting at them and trying to disable or destroy an enemy ship, those cards will go a long way towards making that happen sooner. So don't forget your resilience, and don't forget to remind your opponent if they happen to roll 2 breakthrough successes and your resilience is only 2, don't forget to remind them, hey, oh, by the way, check your dice. You know, you don't have to tell them specifically, but you might want to remind them at least to check their dice and compare them to the ship that they're shooting at, because that's something that I've forgotten multiple times, and it may have swung some games in a very different way. And pre-measuring. Pre-measuring. Can you pre-measure? Are you allowed to pre-measure? Because there's not a point in the rule book that says, oh, you know what, you cannot pre-measure. But there's also not a point that says you absolutely can and should pre-measure. So what's the answer? Well, I have you guys know. I haven't talked to the developers directly, asked them about this question, and they said absolutely you can pre-measure. The idea is to keep the game flowing smoothly. And if you need a lore reason, I would suggest to you this. Your computers have sensors. Every computer has basic sensors. Every ship has computers on them with lots of navigational equipment and a lot of sensors and computer functions that are beyond the scope of what the game is trying to do, like life support and and artificial gravity and all of that stuff. But your ships also know how far it is to the next ship. They know what their movement capabilities are. It'd be a real feels bad if you were to say, all right, I want to move my ship here. I want him to be just within weapons range of you. Well, your ship can do that, right? The ships, that's something that happens in Star Trek all the time. They do very precise maneuvers all the time. This shouldn't be one of those games where it's like, oh, you dropped your ship. Oh, and now after we measured, you're just 1 millimeter outside of shooting range, so you can't shoot now. But when the ship clearly had if they clearly had the range to be able to move and they just happen to stop 1 millimeter too soon, you want to avoid like gotchas like that. So yes, of course you can pre-measure. You can pre-measure all you want, and the idea is you want to keep the game going smoothly. So line it up, figure out what you want to do, and state your intentions for your opponent. That's my personal rule of thumb. Always state your intentions. Like, look, I'm trying to get just within range of you, but outside of range of him. And do I have the movement in order to do that? Let's pre-measure and determine. And then they have ways to mark your ship as well. So yes, you can absolutely pre-measure. Be a good sport. Help your opponent pre-measure. Help them hold down stuff and help them move things. It keeps the game moving faster, because one of the things I think we've found out through years of playing games and the communities have seen is that when you don't allow any kind of pre-measurement, it slows the game down so much, because now every single move, every time somebody touches a ship, there's serious, irreversible consequence to that. So now a simple, I'm just moving straight, like 2 inches becomes, hold on, I need to look at this really clear to make sure I don't move, 2.5 inches by accident. So it makes every move like ultra super delicate, and and it slows the game down a lot. So yeah, you can absolutely pre-measure, be a good sport, have a good time, and those are some of my helpful tips to you guys. Let me go ahead and turn off the main viewer. Boop. All right, we're back. We're getting closer to the Romulan neutral zone, and I expect to be hailed by a Romulan delegation here very, very soon. But before that happens, I do have a giveaway winner I want to announce for today. This is for the Benjamin Sisko foil for Star Trek Into the Unknown. Again, one of our 12 Days of Life Day. And today's winner is going to be Kentonius2. Congratulations, Kentonius2. Go ahead and shoot me an email at mailcrabbok@gmail.com, and we will get you squared away. If you did not win, don't worry. There's plenty more time left to win other giveaways, and anything that goes unclaimed throughout this whole thing. You got 30 days to claim any gifts. Anything that doesn't get claimed rolls over into Patreon. So plenty more opportunities for patrons to get extra goodies. I want to thank you guys all so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like the video, share the video, give it a thumbs up, click that bell for alerts, share it in your social media circles, in your groups, with your friends, family, people who are getting into this game. It's going to be awesome. It's super fun, and hopefully we can continue to help each other as we learn this game. That's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much. Hopefully you're having a wonderful holiday time, and you are ready to rock and roll into the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. All right, that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all so much. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are out of this world and help make this whole channel possible. Thank you so much for your continued support. I will talk to you later. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes. So say we all. And always wash your socks.